You heard about Bitcoin, but did you hear about Bitcoin Cash? Why is there a cryptocurrency within World Top 20 that shares the name with number 1? That and everything else about Bitcoin Cash will be answered by the end of this video. And if you are a complete beginner, you might want to subscribe because Bitcoin Academy is #1 rising platform for crypto education, and every video is 100% beginner friendly. All right, sit back and let me get to explaining. When people first hear the name Bitcoin Cash, they instantly assume it's just another version of Bitcoin, or maybe even a copy trying to ride its success. But that's not the case, and this topic will make that clear from the very start. Bitcoin Cash, often shortened as BCH, is not some random spin-off coin pretending to be Bitcoin. It's actually one of the most fascinating and controversial projects in crypto history, born directly out of a civil war inside the Bitcoin community itself. The name might sound similar, and that's because it literally came from Bitcoin's own codebase. You can think of it like two siblings that share the same DNA, but grow up to follow very different paths. One stayed focused on being digital gold, the other wanted to stay true to the idea of digital cash. Now, before we move further, let's clear one important concept for beginners. When we say Bitcoin Cash is a fork of Bitcoin, it doesn't mean it was created out of thin air. In blockchain terms, a fork means a split in the blockchain's history. Imagine a long road that suddenly divides into two paths. Both share the same past, but from that point forward, they go in different directions. That's what happened in 2017. One version continued as Bitcoin, and the other became Bitcoin Cash. Both blockchains share the same transaction history up to the day of the split, but everything after that is completely separate. If you held Bitcoin before the fork, you automatically received the same amount of Bitcoin Cash on the new chain. What makes this story special is that the split wasn't caused by greed or marketing. It was caused by a deep disagreement about how Bitcoin should evolve. On one side, developers and users wanted to keep Bitcoin small, secure, and decentralized. On the other, a group argued that Bitcoin was becoming too slow and expensive for everyday use, and that it needed bigger blocks to process more transactions. The tension built up for years until the network finally split, giving birth to Bitcoin Cash. So, when someone tells you Bitcoin Cash is just another Bitcoin clone, you can confidently say they're wrong. It's not a copy. It's a different vision that came from the same roots. And now, in order to understand why Bitcoin Cash even exists, we need to travel back to the year 2017, a turning point in crypto history when Bitcoin's community became divided over how to scale the network. Bitcoin at that time was already a global phenomenon, but it was struggling with something very simple. It couldn't handle the number of people trying to use it. Transactions were piling up, fees were skyrocketing, and waiting for confirmations could take hours, sometimes even days. For a currency that was meant to make payments fast and cheap, this was a serious problem. The core question that started dividing the Bitcoin community was, how do we fix this? The answer turned into one of the most heated debates in all of crypto, and it eventually led to the creation of Bitcoin Cash. On one side were the so-called small blockers. They argued that Bitcoin should keep its block size small, at 1 megabyte. In Bitcoin's system, a block is like a digital container that holds a batch of transactions. The smaller it is, the less data each block carries, which makes it easier for ordinary people to run their own nodes and verify the network. This side believed that keeping Bitcoin light and decentralized was more important than speed, because decentralization is what made Bitcoin different from banks in the first place. On the other side were the big blockers, a group made up of developers, miners, and business leaders who wanted to increase the block size. They believed Bitcoin should scale on-chain by allowing more transactions per block. Their argument was simple. If Bitcoin was supposed to be peer-to-peer electronic cash, as Satoshi Nakamoto described in his white paper, then it needed to work as everyday money. That meant fast, low-cost payments for coffee, groceries, and anything else, not just large transfers or long-term holding. After months of endless online debates and failed compromises, the conflict reached a breaking point. In August 2017, the Big Blocker Group decided to take action. They copied Bitcoin's open-source code, made technical changes to increase the block size from 1 megabyte to 8, and launched a new blockchain that shared Bitcoin's history up until that moment. This event is known as a hard fork, meaning the blockchain permanently split into two separate versions that could no longer communicate with each other. The original chain continued as Bitcoin, while the new one officially became Bitcoin Cash. This split wasn't just a technical event. It was an ideological one. It represented two very different visions for the future of digital money. Bitcoin would continue down the path of security and scarcity, becoming what many now call digital gold. Bitcoin Cash, meanwhile, would focus on speed and practicality, staying closer to the idea of being digital cash for everyday people. From that day on, two chains with shared roots began living separate lives, each determined to prove it was the true successor to Satoshi's original dream. Now that we understand how Bitcoin Cash came to exist, let us focus on the exact problem it was created to solve. At the center of the split was a simple limit inside Bitcoin. Blocks were capped at 1 megabyte, so each block could carry only a small number of transactions before it was full. When many people used the network at once, new transactions waited in a queue called the mempool. As the line grew, miners picked the transactions that offered higher fees, because miners earn those fees. In busy periods during 2017, it was common to pay several dollars to send a small payment and still wait a long time for confirmation. For everyday use, that felt broken. Supporters of Bitcoin Cash saw this as proof that Bitcoin had drifted from peer-to-peer electronic cash. Their fix was direct. Increase block size so more transactions fit into each block. Picture a crowded doorway. If the door is narrow, the line slows, and people pay to jump ahead. If you widen the door, more people pass at once. The line shrinks and the cost goes down. This is called on-chain scaling, because you scale the blockchain itself. The opposite camp preferred extra layers, especially the Lightning Network, where small payments happen off-chain and only the result touches the main chain. Both sides tried to solve the same pain, but they disagreed on where the scaling should happen. Bitcoin Cash chose the on-chain path. It lifted the block size far beyond 1 megabyte, which raised the number of transactions processed every 10 minutes. Fees fell to a tiny fraction of $1, and confirmations became more predictable. This made the system usable for daily life, like buying coffee, paying a friend, or sending money abroad without heavy fees. There is a trade-off. Bigger blocks need more storage and bandwidth to verify, which can make it harder for regular users to run full nodes. Fewer everyday nodes can reduce decentralization. Fans of Bitcoin Cash accept that trade-off in exchange for fast and cheap payments. Fans of the original Bitcoin accept higher fees and slower on-chain throughput to keep the base layer small and easy to verify. That tension is the heart of the story. One path aims for digital cash today. The other aims for resilience with higher volume on additional layers tomorrow. All of that sounds great, but now it is time to cover how this cryptocurrency actually works. Bitcoin Cash works almost the same way as Bitcoin, but with a few key differences that make it faster and cheaper to use. Both rely on something called proof of work, which means computers known as miners compete to solve difficult mathematical puzzles that confirm transactions and create new blocks on the blockchain. This process keeps the system secure because changing any transaction would require redoing all the work of every miner, which is practically impossible. Bitcoin Cash uses the same SHA-256 mining algorithm and shares Bitcoin's hard limit of 21 million coins, which ensures scarcity just like gold. Where it separates itself is in the block size. Bitcoin kept its blocks at 1 megabyte, while Bitcoin Cash expanded them to 8 and later to 32. That simple change allows each block to hold many more transactions, reducing waiting times and cutting fees down to fractions of a cent. Because of this, Bitcoin Cash can process payments in a few seconds and remain cheap even when demand is high. Every transaction gets stored on a shared public ledger called the blockchain, which means anyone can verify it and no one can secretly alter it. Each full node keeps a copy of that ledger, making the system transparent and resilient. The mining rewards in Bitcoin Cash are reduced by half roughly every 4 years in an event called the halving, the same mechanism Bitcoin uses to limit inflation and control supply over time. The difference in philosophy is what truly defines it. Bitcoin today acts like digital gold, a long-term store of value that people hold rather than spend. Bitcoin Cash, on the other hand, focuses on being digital cash, a tool for fast peer-to-peer payments and everyday use. It keeps the same security model as Bitcoin, but adjusts the settings to favor usability. In short, Bitcoin Cash is the same machine tuned differently, built for speed and affordability instead of long-term storage. It exists for people who believe crypto should still function as money, not just as an investment locked away in a wallet. All right, now it is time to answer the most debated question in Bitcoin community. Which one stayed true to Satoshi's original vision? When Bitcoin split in two, both sides claimed they were the real guardians of Satoshi Nakamoto's original vision. The argument still divides people today because it is not just technical, it is philosophical. In the original Bitcoin white paper, Satoshi described Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and that phrase became the foundation of the entire debate. The Bitcoin Cash community believes that this description proves Satoshi's goal was to create fast and affordable digital money that people could use every day. They say that Bitcoin in its current form moved away from that purpose, becoming more of a digital gold that people hold instead of spend. To them, Bitcoin Cash represents the version of Bitcoin that never forgot its purpose, allowing anyone to send money anywhere with almost zero fees and instant confirmation. The supporters of Bitcoin disagree completely. They argue that Satoshi also cared deeply about decentralization and security, and that keeping the blocks small ensures ordinary people can still run nodes without expensive equipment. In their view, that accessibility keeps the network free from corporate or government control. They claim that the small block limit is not a flaw, but a protection, and that scaling should happen through second-layer solutions, like the Lightning Network, which handles smaller transactions off-chain while keeping the main blockchain secure and lightweight. So, while Bitcoin Cash focuses on usability today, Bitcoin focuses on sustainability for tomorrow. Both sides have evidence to support their arguments, which is why the dispute has lasted for years. One side prioritizes speed and low cost, believing that true adoption requires convenience. The other side prioritizes decentralization and integrity, believing that trust in the system is worth more than transaction speed. In truth, both are right from different perspectives. Bitcoin Cash embodies the spirit of everyday electronic cash, while Bitcoin embodies the store of value principle that protects wealth over time. They are like two branches of the same tree, each growing in a direction that reflects a different interpretation of Satoshi's dream. One focused on freedom to spend, the other focused on freedom to save. All right, we covered how it works and philosophy behind it. Now let's go over real-world usage and adoption. Bitcoin Cash was created to be used, not just stored, and that goal shaped how it spread in the real world. Because transactions are confirmed in seconds and cost less than a cent, it quickly found supporters in regions where banking systems are unreliable or too expensive. In countries across South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, many people use it as a simple way to send money or accept payments without going through banks. A worker can send wages home to family instantly, a small shop can take payment through a phone app, and a student can receive funds from abroad without losing a large cut to fees. This practicality is what keeps Bitcoin Cash relevant even years after its launch. It might not make daily headlines, but it quietly powers peer-to-peer economies that depend on low-cost transactions. Some remittance companies also use it behind the scenes to move money between countries faster than traditional channels. For merchants, it means being paid directly with no chargebacks or hidden costs. And for users, it offers the same independence that cash provides in the physical world. Online stores and service platforms that once relied only on Bitcoin now often list Bitcoin Cash as an option because it works better for small payments. In places where inflation eats away at local currency, people sometimes convert part of their savings into BCH as a hedge while still being able to spend it easily when needed. The network also supports various community-driven projects like local donation campaigns and educational programs, teaching people how to use wallets and make secure transfers. Even if adoption is smaller compared to giants like Bitcoin or Ethereum, the usage of Bitcoin Cash remains steady because it serves a real purpose. It stays true to the idea of money that works for everyone, especially for those left out of the traditional financial system, making it one of the few cryptocurrencies that still acts like what digital cash was always meant to be. All right, but with every single thing in life, there are always risks and criticisms, so let's cover the as well. So even though Bitcoin Cash works fast and cheap, it faces several real risks that prevent it from growing as much as Bitcoin. The first and most important one is security. Since Bitcoin Cash uses the same proof-of-work system as Bitcoin, but has a much smaller number of miners, its total computing power or hash rate is far lower. In simple words, there are fewer machines protecting its network. This makes it easier, at least in theory, for a group with enough resources to perform what is called a 51% attack, where someone gains control over more than half of the mining power and could rewrite short parts of the blockchain. Such an event would damage trust badly, even if it only lasted a short time. Another issue is the limited number of developers working on Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin has a massive open-source community that constantly updates its code and reviews improvements. While Bitcoin Cash relies on a much smaller group, which can slow innovation and leave it vulnerable to bugs or delays. The next challenge is centralization. Larger blocks mean more data to store, and that requires more powerful and expensive equipment to run a full node. As a result, fewer individuals can afford to participate, giving more influence to big operators and mining pools. Critics argue this weakens decentralization, the very principle cryptocurrencies were built on. There is also a branding problem that never truly went away. Because of the similar name, many beginners assume Bitcoin Cash is just a cheaper version of Bitcoin, and that confusion leads to misunderstandings and poor market perception. Finally, adoption among developers and businesses has been slower compared to other major coins. While some merchants accept BCH, the ecosystem is smaller and less integrated into modern financial apps. Supporters see it as a misunderstood project that still carries the true idea of peer-to-peer cash, but skeptics call it an experiment that never reached its potential. Both sides have valid points, and the truth lies somewhere between. Bitcoin Cash remains functional and reliable, but it must overcome these risks if it wants to secure its place in the future of global digital payments. Okay, we're almost done, and what better way to finish this than cover present time? Let's see where Bitcoin Cash stands today. In 2025, Bitcoin Cash continues to exist as a stable and quietly reliable cryptocurrency that fulfills its original promise of fast and low-cost transactions. It no longer fights for the spotlight or tries to overtake Bitcoin in popularity, yet it remains within the top 20 coins by market value and still processes thousands of transactions every day without delay. The network has proven to be consistent, rarely experiencing issues or downtime, which is impressive for a system that has been running since 2017. Many of its early supporters have stayed loyal because it still does exactly what it was designed to do. Sending Bitcoin Cash costs less than a cent, and transactions confirm in seconds, making it useful for people in countries where banking systems are slow or expensive. In regions across Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, it serves as a practical bridge for remittances and small business payments. Some freelancers also use it to get paid internationally, avoiding conversion fees and waiting times. Over the years, Bitcoin Cash has found its place as digital cash that simply works. The community behind it has also evolved. Instead of chasing hype, it focuses on education and local adoption through workshops and simple wallet tools that anyone can use. Developers continue to maintain the network's code and explore small improvements that make it more user-friendly, but the main philosophy has not changed. Bitcoin Cash aims to stay light, fast, and accessible to everyone with an internet connection. It might not be the centerpiece of the crypto market, but it has earned respect for stability and reliability, qualities that are often rare in this space. In a world where many projects rise and fall with speculation, Bitcoin Cash has quietly become a working piece of global payment infrastructure. It may never replace Bitcoin as digital gold, but it remains an active example of what peer-to-peer digital money was always meant to be: simple, direct, and borderless. We have reached the end of today's video, and now you fully understand what Bitcoin Cash really is and why it still matters in 2025. You learned how it was born from one of the biggest disagreements in crypto history, and how it stayed true to the goal of creating fast and affordable digital money for everyone. If you enjoyed this explanation, make sure to check one of the 2 videos that just appeared on your screen, because they will expand your understanding even further. And if you want to keep learning about the world of crypto with zero confusion, remember to subscribe, like, and leave a comment telling me what topic you want next. Until then, take care, and I will see you in the next one.